I'm Clint, and welcome to Swatches Livestream number 46. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the art submissions from you, the viewers, on the Alice in Wonderland, the Red Riding Hood Art Challenge. So, thank you for joining me. As I said, I'm illustrator Clint Cearley, and we're going to just spend a couple of minutes here getting some announcements out of the way, bring you up to date on the channel. And then we'll be jumping into the art reviews and critiques. If you are new to the channel, then thank you for joining me. And if you are looking for art feedback or instructional material, then I am here to help. There's a lot of free videos here on the channel on a lot of different subject matter as art education. I am also available for consultations if you would like a remote art mentor, and you need to speak with a professional and you would like to have some feedback on your gallery, or you have questions about the industry or whatever, then you can go out to art-mentor.com and schedule a session out there. I'd be glad to meet with you over a video chat and discuss that. Otherwise, if you would like to join in on this challenge, then we have very easy to do that. Just become a patron out on patreon.com/swatches and join at the $10 level or above, and you can join in on the challenges. And of course, you will be getting any new content that is released on Patreon as well. This is just one aspect to becoming a patron. Okay. It looks like the stream is going good. I've got green connection over here, so I'm gonna bring that down. Lower that. Lewis, how you doing? Your first one in here commenting. Good to see you. Well, hello from Mexico. Hello from Tennessee. Thanks for joining in. That is one thing that I do like about this channel a lot, and the viewership I have here is it's so broad. I was looking at the stats, and I think it's about split between 50% of my audience is in the United States, here where I am, and then 50% is overseas. So I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, we just want to kill another minute here or two before we really get into it, because I know people are trying to join in live that are having their images reviewed. I want to make sure they can get in and get settled. If you are joining me live, feel free to put your questions down in the chat if you'd like me to address those during the stream. Otherwise, we do have a set of questions here that was submitted from the Facebook group. If you've not joined out there, please do so. We have over 1,500 members out there. It's very active, very supportive. And you can get a lot of information about what's going on with Swatches, or if you have general questions, that is at swatches.group. It will hot link you directly to the correct Facebook group. Leo, Bronze, Lisa, good to see you guys. How's it going? You don't realize how dry your throat is until you have to start getting on stream and talking, and all of a sudden your throat's like, oh wait, I wasn't ready for that. Okay, so to catch everybody up to date, if you're not familiar with what's going on here, every 2 weeks I start a new art challenge, and this is just a random thing that I come up with subject wise. I would say random, but I try to give a variety of different things so everybody has a different task, something new to work with. And what they're working on this time is a book cover for Red Riding Hood. It's a fictional book, but we haven't worked with something where you had to accommodate for text and also convey an entire story behind it and not just a singular image. So that's what we're going to be doing on this one and what we're going to be looking at. Bronze says, amazing year so far. Hope you're doing great as well. I am doing good, Bronze. Thank you. How are you guys doing this evening? I say evening. I know you guys are all over the place, so it might be different times for you. Oh, yeah. Also want to mention that Next week, the stream will be 5 hours earlier. It will be 2 p.m. for Central Standard Time here in the U.S. That is for my European audience. All right, you guys have been asking for a earlier stream so that you don't have to watch it 2 a.m. in the morning. And so, yeah, we're going to be doing that next week. It will be at 2 p.m. 2 a.m. for them. So it'll be 6-hour difference between here and London. So 2 p.m. here will be 8 p.m. for London. And then you can figure it out from there. Mamet says, hey, Swatches, what's up? BRB, need to grab a drink. All right, man. Matt, good to see you. Solarity. All right, we're getting some people coming in now. Very good, very good. Okay, well, tell you what, I'm going to do the first question, and you guys put in whether you want me to go right into the images reviews or whether you want me to do the new challenge. So I'll be putting that in while I'm answering this first submitted question. The first one actually comes from Ricardo, who sent it in last week, but I couldn't quite make out what he was saying in the question, so he restated it, and we're going to cover it right now. Okay, so Ricardo asks, I've used Grammarly. Okay, simplify the question. What is the psychological impact of organic shapes in a painting? How can I take advantage of the non-organic shapes, like a square, a triangle, a circle, in paintings where organic shapes should be dominant, say drawing or painting natural scenes? I'll be glad to know if the question is clear enough now, or I'll restate it. Okay, well, it's still kind of an odd question, so I'll throw out a couple of things that come to mind, and you've got to let me know if that's what you were looking for or not. Okay, so how can you take, what is the psychological impact of organic shapes? Organic shapes are generally less threatening if you're going to use them in character design or for some sort of architecture. They're more comforting, less threatening, because we associate them with nature. And another big factor is that they symbolize growth, and that can be very good. Flowering sort of shapes, softly branching shapes, all have a feeling of growth or naturalness to them. Where non-organic shapes, such as squares and triangles, I'm almost going to say that a circle is sort of in the middle, because circles appear in nature a lot. Everything from the size of an atom up to the size of, a supergiant star, all use circular or spherical shapes. You drop a pebble in some water and you're going to get circular rings. So that's kind of on the edge. But as far as square and triangle, yeah, they're obviously man-made. So if you want something to look artificial or constructed, you need to do that. They are generally less personal, I would say impersonal. A square is very impersonal, where a flower feels more personal because there's a sense of life to it. Also, inorganic shapes have a feeling of staticness, of rigidness, where they're more unchanging. So if you have a scene where it's primarily organic shapes, perhaps we'll say a forest maybe, and what would be the impact of using inorganic shapes is, if it is not very well balanced, then a scene that is primarily anything and you put some other contrasting element in there, so organic shapes with some inorganic shape, like a square building, let's say, then it's going to stand out. But that's true with any kind of can't think of the right word. Anything that goes, it's contrasting size, contrasting shapes, contrasting color. It's always going to stand out. How can I take advantage of them? You can take advantage of them either by using them to bring attention to something, because you know that it's going to draw attention due to its uniqueness, or you can use them in compositional means. A triangle is a very strong compositional element. I cover that in my ebook on compositions. You can find that on the store in the link. And that would be good. Circles are also excellent. So any of those, like squares, triangles, circles, are very good compositional tools or patterns to use. So you could have an organic subject matter and follow it to an inorganic pattern. So, all right, so several random things to consider, but that'll do it. All right, what are you guys saying? I fell asleep before I put my artwork on Dropbox, but only blasted it through last night for myself. All right, dude, 4 a.m. Yeah, that's either super early or super late. I'm not sure which. New challenge. Everyone makes fun of me, thinks I'm a vampire. Yeah. Okay, so we only got one vote. It was for a new challenge, so that's what we'll do. New challenge is duo. I couldn't really come up with some fancy name for it, so there we go. Works like this. If you're new to it, then this is a fictional outline for an image. It is only for the channel to be used in this art challenge context. It is illustration. Obviously, I'm not paying for this, so that's blanked out. Image size is up to you, but when you submit it, just makes 3,000 pixels the maximum dimension, whether height or width, whichever is bigger. Don't go over 3,000 pixels. Make it an RGB, make it a JPEG image. That'll be good. It'll be duo. Again, 2-week thing, week for sketch, week for final. So choose which image subject you want from the list below. Each image features 2 primary elements: a figure in the foreground and a large accompanying creature or machine in the background. They are comrades and should be facing the same general direction. It is important to convey the massive size of the background element. Do not make the character's face directly into the camera, and aim for feelings of adventure or scale, or just make it cool. And you can choose from one of these 4. These are all different pairs of duos. I get 2. A wizard and a dragon. Classic wizard, white beard, long cloak. Give him a staff, a wand, a talisman, something that he's got in his hand there. And the dragon behind him should be massive, and it can be flying by him, or it can be landed back behind him and is like waiting a command or something. Second one is a soldier or a mech, futuristic soldier. We're thinking Halo, Spartan, Gears of War, Marcus Phoenix, that sort of thing. Advanced body armor. You can have him fully helmeted if you want to do a helmet. If you want to do a head, no helmet, whichever is fine. The mech can be something like a large gunship, a very heavily armored, maybe like I'm thinking of the manga Appleseed, and it has gunships. It's 20 stories tall. It's got like 6 legs that it walks on. The whole top of it is a series of artillery guns. You can do that sort of thing, or you do something a bit more organic, semi-organic, like you would have from Evangelion, that series, anime series. So there you go. Third option is a sky pirate. Very different. Do a dashing pirate. It could be a man or a woman with bright colors, flying fabrics in the wind, and behind them you get to choose one of 2 things. Either this large, cool, white-sailed ship that's flying, Lots of decks, right? This doesn't have to follow the exact same thing that a normal ship would be. So have a little fun. Give it extra decks to it. Figure out some sort of fins that you can put on the side. Maybe even a little Ghibli, influence to it if you want to go that direction. Or you can go with your rendition of some sort of sky whale that might be flying behind them. And number 4 is a warrior with a titan. So the warrior is there in the foreground. They have dark armor. It's more aggressive design. And they have a large serrated broadsword that they're holding. The titan is a large creature or humanoid type with a very forbidding appearance. Reminders on these, anyone is welcome to work on these, put them out on the Facebook group, share them on your portfolios, but only those who are the patrons will get their images actually reviewed in the next stream. Number 2, you can join in the challenges at any time, and you don't have to submit in a sketch in order to submit a final. And number 3, just a reminder, next week will be at 2 p.m. CST, which is 5 hours earlier than it normally is. That would be true for, whatever time zone you're in. Okay. These are I'm going to open the folder so we can see the full size. A collection, I had a couple of other images to reference, but I couldn't find what folder I put them in. I sure didn't remember the name of the artist. So this is an idea for a gunship, semi-organic, something along that line. This one is really cool from Brad Rigney, I believe, did this one. So you could have your character here in the foreground. It takes up most of the image, but also the massive creature behind them. So this sort of distance, I want a lot of sense of scale behind the creature. Lisa says, is it possible to do a female wizard? Oh, yeah, I didn't put that in there, but that's fine. If you want to do like a female mage, yeah, you can go with that. Another version of a gunship. I think that was the same artist as the first one, but it's cool. If you wanted to do a titan, that was like this one made me think of like a frost giant in the background. That could be cool. This is another one of Rigney, but let me scale that. Let me scale it. No, it doesn't want to let me do that. There we go. So you could have a character kind of in the foreground like this, and then you might see, the giant hand of it, and then just its head, back there. Just that sort of idea of large-scale distance. But I don't want them facing directly into the camera. I don't want, one here and one right behind it like that. I'd rather see them be facing off to the side like this, or like that, These are excellent. This doesn't have a large creature in the background, but Simon Cope came up with a beautiful image here. I really like this image a lot. But these are the sorts of things that I want to see for the foreground characters. They should basically be about full body. And this is all you need. You can just put them on like a rock ledge like this. You don't need to know much about what they're standing on. Just, maybe put a couple of clumps of grass there or whatever. Or if they're, standing on some ruins of something, or maybe they're standing on the top of another, if it was a gunship, maybe they're standing on the top of some other gunship. You can just see a little bit of the armor there or whatever. But, just this kind of passive pose. They're standing there looking off to the distance, not looking at the camera again. This one is a different take. If you want to do more of a vertical image and try to, pose them in that sort of array. This also isn't a bad approach for the darker warrior sort of character. That could be it. And really excellent dragon. I like that design. It's very heavy, takes up a lot of space in the image. So, again, and a lot of distance on that as well. So let's try to take up most of the image in the background with the background element, be it the ship, the well, the dragon, the gunship, whatever it is. Take up most of the room in the background with that. This would be something that would work well as a Titan. So you're thinking like, Greek mythology, maybe even, Roman mythology, kind of god of war sort of feeling, those sort of massive Titan sort of creatures. A giant kraken, anything on those lines would qualify as a Titan. Like this image right here would actually even work really well if you had a foreground character maybe standing here on this rock, and he took up most of the height of the image there. So most of this scene would be taken up by the Titan, and then you have your Dark Warrior here. But remember, this isn't a battle scene. These guys are together. They're working together. Allies, if you want to say it that way. So make sure that they're facing the same way, and they kind of have the same intent about them. So another beautiful piece. These would be good as background Titans. Like if you had a foreground character more over here, had that massive dude in the background, that would work well as well. This is a good creature there in the background. So, yep. All right, so that gives you an overview of what the next challenge will be. You'll have a week to create the sketch or the concept and submit it. I will put a link out on Patreon's Swatches. Patreon.com/Swatches is where the link will go up where you can submit your image or images. You are welcome to create multiple images and submit them in if you don't know which one to go for. So, yeah, you can do that. Next challenge, character in the foreground, huge creature in the background. Yep. Mehmet says, should it be solid? Can we make like that like spirit or something like bloodlust cast from the Heroes of the Storm, where it looks like semi-transparent soul? If you want to go for, I would say you could do that for either the Titan or the dragon. It could be like a spirit form, kind of a translucent sort of thing. I'd be okay with that. As far as the ship and the well and the gunship, let's keep those all normal and solid. Yeah. But for the straight creatures on the other ones, you could do that. And think about different ways that you can convey the scale. So maybe if it was on this and you had the dragon, that you would actually have a bit of the castle in the background, and then you have the dragon, wrapping around it or sitting on it. And then that way you could actually tell how big it is. Also perspective, if you wanted to look up and have a more extreme perspective where you're kind of looking up at the main character and then the background, element reaches way up behind them. Having just a loss of the, of values, kind of the flattening of the tones a little bit helps. Having even buildings or elements between you, having clouds between you, those all help. That sort of thing. And as we are not getting that many entries in the last couple of challenges, we only have like 8 entries. So if you do want more feedback, now is the time, because I'm not having to split it between that many images. So if you want to get a bit more feedback than normal, you might want to join in on the challenge. Can anyone enter this challenge, or do we have to be a patron? Yes and no. If you want to have your image reviewed, you do have to be a patron. Only patrons will have access to the submission link, and that's why you would need to be a patron. But if you want to just, for the heck of it, for the fun of it, to just build something for your portfolio, I will make the files available. I'll make the description available and everything to everyone in the community. So you're welcome to just be inspired and create some images and, practice. But it won't be reviewed unless you're a patron. Could we instead use a mage or other magical creature instead of a dragon? For the wizard or mage, if you want to use another type of magical creature, that's fine. If you want to come up with some original creature, I would just, the dragon was a very classical sort of thing. Everybody kind of knows what it is. But yeah, if you want to come up with something original that just would still fit in that vein of, obviously this is a magical creature. Even if you wanted to go a more lighthearted with it, you can make her, I'm just thinking if you kind of wanted to go the different direction with it. Instead of a wizard, you can do kind of like a pixie character. She's more fun, lots of colors. She's got a magic staff or a wand. And there's some really huge, I'm almost thinking like giant Tartaro, creature behind her. And try to connect them a little bit. I forgot to mention that in the description. I meant to write that in there. Try to give some visual connection between the two. Maybe a similar color, similar pattern on them. In some ways, just try to tie them together a little bit. If one uses, a lot of certain kind of shape, maybe the other one does as well. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let's start taking a look. Whoa, I'm getting a little lag on that. Take a look at the submissions. First up, we have Christoph. Let's go ahead and open it in Photoshop. So what do we have? I didn't even count. How many do we have? Like 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, 8. Yeah, we do have 8. Okay. Oh, I think I saw a comment earlier. When is the next Patreon coming out? Man, I was trying to get it done for next month, but I don't think I am. Because I've got several commissions starting, and I don't think I'm going to be able to put the time into the paying commissions and get the Patreon done in time to the degree that I want to do it. So I'm still working on it as I can. So I'll let you know if I'm able to just really jam over the next week and get a lot out. But otherwise, it'll probably have to be delayed a bit longer than that. All right, so Christoph, yeah, I remember your original image, and you're making some adjustments. I don't like that. There we go. I forget. This is not my main computer. There we go. And yeah, I switched between my main computer and this computer. It's my backup that I leave up here for streaming. And the things are just slightly different in the setup. Okay, so what's working here, what's not? I think the wolf is honestly one of the strongest things about this image. It has the very clear division there between the two. I think that's better. I think we have to have more work on this face or come up with a different approach to it. Like the sketchiness kind of works for him because of the fur. But for her, it doesn't really work. It's not very clean. What I would like to see is a more professional... No, I don't want to install updates right now. I'd like to see a more professional line work to it. And I think that would really push it a lot further. I say, thanks, Swatches. This is my first time joining, so I wanted to be sure. Oh, yeah, you're welcome. If you need clarifications, feel free to ask me or the other fellows in the chat can probably answer most of your questions. Okay, so I don't know if I can do a fast, simple change here, but okay, right now it looks like you did some fast sketching, kind of roughed in features and textures and stuff. But what we want is clean lines now. And, or if not clean, then you can have a professional way of handling the textures. Let me take a look and see if I have something on the right line. My resources on this one is a little out of date. But let me look at styles and see. I know in my head what I'm thinking, but I don't want to have to take the time to actually draw enough of it that it would make sense. So like even like this, it's more professional. This is also a really cool artist. I like their work. You can see their name right there if you want to look them up. So you can see how graphic the blacks are, and that in the stuff in the white is completely white, and the way that the ink is used is more careful than what you are. It's less sketchy. It's a cleaner way to do lines, but it's not like cartoon lines. It's not just outlining things. It is massing things into generally very tight lines and bigger, blockier black shapes. And I feel like you're pretty close to that, and that's why I'm kind of thinking this way with yours. And then very, very light lines and hashing on areas that are soft. I don't have a lot of comic refs in this folder, and I'm not sure where those are. Anyway, so in all of this is just kind of making it look dirty. Let's take that off. I don't need to have smoothing. So like on all of this, we don't really need the roughness. And we want to have more precise shapes to it. And if you have sections in here think about how you can do it with a shape. And look at really good inking styles for comic books and comic book covers, because you're pretty close to that. And in this sort of thing, you want very light, thin lines that are very controlled, not haphazard, very controlled. So you just come back in all of this and have these very controlled lines. And they can still be very soft at a distance, but yeah, it's just finessing it a lot more. Also look at the way that they do etching on a linotype sort of etchings, or old style. Man, I remember this one image. I'm trying to remember where I put it. It was this really, really good inking job this guy did. Yeah, I don't remember. Good morning, Christoph. Yeah, look for different inking styles and ways to blend things together, and what you're looking for is like patterns of going from thick to thin, like this sort of thing, and then you have multiple tiers of it. I can't really do it with the lag on this brush right now, but look up images like that are block cut, cross-hatching styles, inking styles, and see how you can clean it up and create something more interesting with it. But the overall feeling, I think, works. And you also might think about grouping them differently. So like the lines out here could be very thin. You could just almost have singular lines, except for you get to a place that has a shadow, and then you have this bold shadow, and then the end of the bold shadow, you have your series of lines leading into it. And that's a very comic book sort of approach. And I think it would work well in yours as well. Different brush there. I'm wondering if putting a shadow across her face wouldn't be interesting to keep it from just such a perfect round shape. I don't know if it would match his after that. I'm just kind of playing with it. Yeah, I think if you just cleaned it up, also you probably don't want to have a line between the teeth. You can just have like a bar for the teeth, and then you suggest the teeth on the top with the gum, and you suggest it on the bottom with a little notch. Again, the lag on this is making it very difficult. So you don't really need to overemphasize it very much. Yeah, so at this point, basically just finessing the line work, going back, giving it another pass, seeing how you can go from a sketch to a very clean, inviting sort of artwork, more professionally rendered. Yeah, true inking, really clean inking is difficult to do, or can be very time consuming. There is a real art to it, so you probably want to do a pass. Try painting the eye, and then if it's not good, do it again and keep doing it. It is a really good skill to have. If I didn't have a half a second delay on every stroke, it would be easier, but I also don't have time to go through the whole thing. Yeah. Okay, next up is that Ezekiel Mercado? I've never seen Ezekiel spelled that way, so I'm gonna assume that's how you say it. But yeah. Okay, on this one, I understood what you're going for. Got the doorway to the house on the top, Red Riding Hood standing there, and her shadow is the wolf. But that's not very clear. I had to really think about that. So there's got to be an easier way to do that. Or not an easier way. There's got to be a more narratively effective way to say that. Effective. Because this is so simple. I wasn't sure what I was looking at. And this is so minimal, I wasn't sure what I was looking at. So instead, I love the idea of her shadow creating the wolf. I think that's cool. But you've got to give us more to go on than that. So instead, if we had Why is this so light? Oh, because it switched to gray somehow. Okay. Clint, I left a huge question for you over on the Facebook group. Didn't realize you'd already started streaming. Well, yeah, I mean, I grabbed whatever was out there about half an hour ago, but I haven't grabbed anything since then. So, I mean, you can have, if you want to do that, you've got to give us a little more perspective. Like, if you have her standing there and you get, you know, a little perspective to her, then you can have a shadow coming off of it, and then have like the door, you know, here. Then that could work. That would be a little better. You also could be thinking about something like having the front of the house, and I'm just thinking like the house is here and maybe the door's here, and then she's, you know, silhouetted in the doorway, and you have her, you know, coat there. And then you have the shadow of the wolf is just falling across the outside of the house and maybe down onto the ground. You know? And you could do it that way. You could do something like, you know, she's standing here, and then the shadow, her shadow is going up on the side of the house, and it's, you know, the wolf, and her shadow's back there. Something that way. So try some combinations like that, and I think you're going to find a narrative that conveys that a little better. No. Well, the deadline was an hour ago on submitting, so if you try to submit something after that, then I didn't get it. I think my submission isn't added based on the alphabetical order, not sure why. I grabbed everything that was submitted out there as of an hour before the stream, which is when the deadline is. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take another question that was submitted online. Question from William. Can you address how you approach a color palette for an illustration? Yeah, I talk about that quite a bit in my Understanding Mood Colors ebook. It's like 25 pages on color. But some thoughts on that is you're either going with a harmonious color scheme or you're going with a contrasting color scheme, depending on what kind of image and mood you're going for. And that usually helps me determine what it should be. So for a peaceful scene, something gentle, something wholesome, you know, good scene, it's not about conflict, then I'm going to go with I'm going to say monochromatic, analogous color scheme. So something within a very similar color range. Whereas if it is something that has conflict or is showing opposition of some kind, then I want to go with competing colors. So complementary, or probably a split complementary. I like split complementary a little bit more. So that's opposing colors, but splitting it. Do I have a color wheel on here? Let me see. Oh no, I don't want to open that tab. I want to open this one. Yeah, let me open this up. Okay, so if you're not aware, this color palette is one that I made, and all of this is available online. You can go out to my Cube Brush store. The link is in the description, cubebrush.co/Clint Cearley, I believe. Anyway, links down there. And you can go download this PSD file. So if I want a gentle scene where it's not about conflict, I want an analogous color scheme. So everything sits within one family on the color wheel. Whereas opposition is two colors that are near opposites. So that can be either a split complementary. So instead of orange, for instance, against the violet tone, which is its exact opposite, it chooses two colors on either side of it. I personally feel that that works pretty well. Or you can go direct opposites with complementary. That works well too. Triadic is a very well-rounded. All right, this is kind of a classic comic book color scheme. Is that they use three different triadic colors. You also have to think about what the lighting situation is, because the lighting is going to affect it, and also the saturation of the image is, the more saturated it is, the more energy it's going to give, and it's going to give a certain kind of energy. So if you are wanting a wide array of colors, maybe like green and violet and orange, but you don't want it to be garish, what you need to do is step it in towards a grayish tone. So you start desaturating them so that the closer they get to gray, the more harmonious they become. That's another way that you can choose it. Yeah. So that's a couple of thoughts on that. If you want more, you can take a look at the ebook on colors, and you can go watch my colors episode. I also cover it in Making Liliana. I'll talk about choosing color on that as well, if you want to pick up one of the videos. Next up, Galena. All right, so you went with the idea of the paper. Okay, I think that's cool. She had a fairly simple line drawing of this same basic scene. No shading, no colors really. I wasn't sure where she was going with it. Suggested that she might do what's kind of a paper cutout approach to it, and she's gone that way. Give me another layer. There we go. I think the paper cutout works. But to push it further, I think there are better shapes that we could use. Like these trees don't work real well for me. I would say you're more on the right lines with this. We're going very simple with this. So even just having a normal, just kind of spruce fir tree shape back here, you don't need to get fancy with it. Just something like that, that would work fine. Also, it would be a little more consistent because we don't have that sort of tree shape back here also. So we can just do that. She's probably getting a little too detailed down here. We don't really need a face. If we can just get a good silhouette for her, then that would really be enough. And maybe just, the basket. Maybe the basket alone, So just kind of like that, and maybe one shape for that. For the face, you don't need any features on it, but let's get a little bit better overall silhouette for Red Riding Hood herself, for the girl. And For these, try to add in some texture. Like actually go look at, I'm gonna take a look out here to see if I have something similar I can suggest. Textures, do I have? Lighting effects, new photos, particles. Not really. I don't really have what I'm talking about. New? Oh yeah, something like this. So if we had, let's just open this one. And grab, say we grab this gray. Oh my goodness. No. Come down here, grab this, copy, paste it. Okay, so we could put a pattern on here, and then put it over top of the layer of the shape. So I have that shape that I've selected. I don't really need the trees in here. Anyway, close enough. And then we can do create clipping mask. And we can start adding some patterns into this. Now, it doesn't have to be over the top. I mean, you can run like a soft light on it. Run a hard light on it. It's probably much. Overlay. Set the opacity down some if you wanted to. But if you add some textures in these, I think that would help. And you want to go with something more subtle than that. That's very big. I would go with, if I was going to use this one, then something a lot smaller, shape-wise, probably more like that. And you can go through each one of these and come up with a different kind of design. And remember, the designs, they can be going different directions depending on how you want to lead the eye. And that way that there was just a little visual interest to it. And you can go out there and look at different kinds of patterns. You can have stripes and this sort of thing. You can have this sort of thing. Also look for different kind of cultural patterns. Weaving patterns, that sort of idea. And that would bring more visual interest over to the whole thing. So yeah, just going with a clearer silhouette and shape for her, simpler, just like a white thing on the face for the face. No features, a little simpler here on this tree. And also this tree is kind of in the front. We might want him a little bigger. And then, some sort of maybe a wavy design in this to just sort of mimic hair, right? But it's just a standard design. Yeah. There we go. That also, you might want to think about the color scheme a little bit more. We've kind of have this gray, green, blue, tan. There's nothing really consistent about the overall color scheme. It's like, if it was just all keyed together some way or another, I feel like that would be better. So that, if it was if you want to treat it like it was winter time. So all the background stuff was as if it was winter. The trees are white, the ground is blue, and, she is completely red. And then he's almost black. So you have a very clear color scheme of most of the colors are keyed together as being, blues and whites and blacks. Then the red is a stark difference to that. So there we go. There we go. Like seeing the improvement there and where you're taking it. Next up, Leonardo. Now, I don't remember you sending in a sketch on this, so that's new to me. Make a new one. Okay. Some things are really working and some things could be cleaned up. I like the shape. I like the simple compositional shape that you're coming up with here. But like one of the things I'm thinking about is the values, and the values are not working real well. Yeah, so like this background, it's kind of gray. And we've got the red just kind of being gray, whitish and blackish, and value-wise, it's kind of all over the place. Design-wise, I'm not sure what you're going with. Why changing the wolf? I'm not sure what it is now. And I don't think that you're gaining anything by doing that. I would think that if you wanted to push it, I mean, you could go for like this really gaunt, if you wanted kind of like a gaunt, almost zombie wolf, where, it has very sallow face and the eyes are sort of set back in its sockets, and you can see all of its ribs, and it looks like it hasn't ate. Like, maybe this isn't even quite a normal wolf. Remember, we've got to have that curving the other way. I don't think the muscles go like that. And that's another thing. The anatomy on this is just kind of weird. So that needs work, but I don't think it's something outside of what is able to be done. I think if you could do the rest of this, that you can, figure out how to look at the posing and anatomy and adjust it a little bit. So, yeah, this, I'm not gaining anything by doing that. Another thing is we're losing a lot of impact by just using this gray back here. So I'd like to see a simpler lighting or more interesting lighting on her that would work in combination with this. The other thing that this made me think of, which I thought you might have been trying to go for, but I don't think you were, is that you're almost treating this like, or you could, I'll toss it out there as an option, is that this is the moon. This whole thing is the moon behind her. But the shape of the moon inside of, the pattern of the moon, like they say, oh, the man in the moon, because you can kind of look at the moon and try to make a face out of it, right? So instead of that, it's got this wolf design, and the crater shapes on the moon and the shadowed spots on the moon kind of create this wolf-like pattern. You wouldn't really have the gray up there. I mean the red on it, but you could come up with a way to do the moon where it sort of had that pattern to it. And I think that would work really well as well if you wanted to go that way. But I totally understand if you don't want to. If you don't want to and you want to do a bit more realistic like this, then make sure you're nailing that anatomy, because that's kind of what you're going to judge it for. Otherwise, push it a lot further. And I'll look up Metal Gear Solid. There is Metal Gear Solid, the game. The character is a part of a group called something Fox. And they've got a Fox logo that is very similar to that pose. So you might look at that and kind of see how they handled that very simple shape and do something the same. For her, with that red's always going to pop better in its middle range. It drops off vibrancy. Since you're not using lighting super realistically, this is definitely more illustrative. I'm going to suggest that you just flatten out a lot of that. You can just leave it red. So you can just leave it red back there. And you don't have to have a lot of... you're going more for the shape and the graphicness of it. Its graphic nature of shape rather than how its realistic look. I think you got to have some sort of shadow under that, though. Yeah. And then I'm not sure. Okay, this is another thing. The narrative just isn't real clear about why she's got blood on her mouth and blood on her hands. Are you trying to say that she can turn into that? If so, it's not real clear. Yeah, I think it's okay if you just treat it like normal. Just the normal version. Otherwise, you've got to do something else and give her like red eyes that match his eyes. And that way we've got a lot clearer connection between the two. Yeah. Also back here, I was going to say, this is a good place to pull in some other color. We don't need to just go with straight gray. I mean, if you're not going to use a discordant color scheme where it's just like everything's one tone and you have one offset color, if you're going to go ahead and use color, then let's use some more color and have, some blues down there running into some nice, violet tones up this way. And, let that run into the sky. And we could have some extra color in the image as well. I was just checking to see if there's any comments to me. Okay. No, hopefully that helps. I like your overall design. It's a good composition. The wolf kind of encompassing around her. So let's nail that with a more interesting shape or more anatomical. You can make it more lyrical, but like the legs have to be bending in the right places and in the right directions and that sort of thing. There we go. Don't save. Another question was Martin, who asked, whoa, I forgot that you can do that on this. Oops. He asked, says, I am 32 years old. I'm working in a job that doesn't have any connection with art, and I'm trying to practice 5 hours per day. That's a lot if you're working a full-time job, with huge effort to keep a good rhythm of learning. Sometimes I feel that I'm too old for the business. How is the best way to lead? I think you mean deal. I think you got that backwards. How to deal with frustration. And some tips for how to get into the industry. Thanks in advance. I mean, 32 is probably later than most people try to get into the industry, but I know it's been done, and I know that it is possible. And I know that if you don't like what you're doing, you have a lot of life left over to do something else. So if you really think this is the direction you should go, do it. I mean, you could be working easily for another 30 years. So, make sure it's something that you enjoy generally. If you are really trying to cram and you're trying to make headway, my suggestion is find a good course online. Find something like Schoolism, CG Masterclass, Master Academy, whatever that's called. Take mentorships, schedule something like with me or someone else. I know there's sort of other artists out there that do the same sort of thing. And that way that you are making the most of your time. And that is really how you're going to improve the most, is by having good teacher input and feedback as often as possible and as much as possible. And then maybe after you've taken a class or a course for a while, take off for a couple of months, try to incorporate all of that into your workflow, try to incorporate that all to be second nature, and then go back and start learning some more, taking some more classes. Is it too old? No, I'm not going to say it's too old. I also don't find that age has much difference in this industry. There's plenty of illustrators that have been illustrating for decades that are still just, keeping busy because they do good work and they're respected. So there you go. How to get into the industry? There's a lot of ways. A lot of ways to do it. The first thing you have to do is get your gallery going. You got to get your portfolio, your artwork up to a steady level of professional quality. So that's the first thing. The next is looking for jobs. The next is getting exposure. You have a good amount of work that's a good quality. You got to start putting it out there. You're putting it on your Facebook page. You're putting it on your online galleries. You're sharing it on Instagram, Pinterest, whatever your platforms are that you work with. Go put it out there. The more people that see it, the more likely somebody's going to see it that wants to hire you. Also, you can go and approach other companies, right? There's plenty of opportunity out there. There's a lot of game companies. And there's a lot of companies that create new games very often. And so I know that I've talked to other people about this before, and I've touched on it a little bit, but there's room in the industry for people that are not superstars. All right, like Jason Chan, the dude's a superstar. He's awesome. He does all kinds of work. But just because he exists doesn't mean that you can't get a job. Why? Because there's a limited number of things that he can do at one time. Even though there might be better people out there, it doesn't mean that they have open schedules. And it doesn't mean that they are willing to work on a project for the amount that maybe you are. And it doesn't mean that they are interested in working on the same things that you are. So everybody brings to the table something different. If you're 32, it also might mean that you have more experience in other things that will lend to you being a better professional artist. You have learned how to make it on your own. You have learned how to manage a household. You have learned how to, make it in this world. And so you're probably a little bit more mature. You're going to bring in more maturity on that side of it. And you're not going to be so thrown around by the newness of having to be on your own and trying to combine that with the art thing. So you're bringing in other aspects that newer artists that maybe are more talented don't have. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit. Go after companies. A lot of companies, game companies, publishers, all of those people, they have art submission, right? Email them, contact them, call them, just say, hey, I'm an artist, be interested in working on some of your projects. I'm a big fan of, this, that you have. Who can I send my work to? I would love to. Or, do you have any art directors that's coming to a convention nearby? And, those are good places to maybe make some connections as well. Or if you're taking a class from, maybe taking a class from another artist online, ask them, hey, do you know of any projects that might be open for someone like me? Another thing to consider doing is joining an artist group. I'm trying to think, that's not the right term. There are illustration houses, all right, that work kind of like a lawyer firm, so that it is a group of artists, and they can be from 3 artists to 30 artists, or maybe even more, that they work as a unit where let's say a game company. A game company is coming out with a new game. They need some concept art created or some marketing art created, and they will come to this company. We'll call it Acme Illustration. They come to Acme Illustration and say, okay, Acme, we have 57 images we need created, and we're going to just hand it to you, and you take care of it. Acme says, sure thing. Then what they do is they go look at all the artists on their roster, and they say, well, Joe's really good at characters, so, we'll ask him if he wants that one, and this guy's good at this, and we'll hand him that. And what they do is they sub all that work out to everyone else. Then the game studio doesn't have to work with individual artists. They just work with their one contact at the group who works with all the artists out there. And that way they don't have to have, communications and all that stuff. And those people, those groups often like to diversify. So they want somebody that knows animation, they want somebody that does 3D modeling, they want somebody that's concept, they want somebody that's illustration. And so that if a client comes to them and says, hey, we got some work that needs this sort of thing done, they go, yep, we got somebody that can do that. And it depends who you're with on one of those groups as to what the arrangement is. You might have to have a retainer where you can give them a certain number of hours. So that really changes depending on what your agreement is. But you might look into trying to join one of those, in that instead of you personally trying to hunt down some clients, that you're basically letting them pull the clients to you. So anyway, that goes out to a lot of you guys as well. Thought you might be interested in that approach as well. Okay, next up, Martin got his question. Now we're going to be taking a look at this. Okay, I like the changes that you made. There weren't major changes. Everything's basically the same place it was. You did turn her face over to the side. I think that's more effective than the 3/4 sort of up view thing that we had. That was just not, I didn't really fit in with the rest of it. So I think this is more effective. A lot of expression there in the eye. I love that. So I like that quite a bit. This is working better. I'm trying to think what we can do to improve it. I feel like you're almost using the trees down here as the teeth, and you're probably going for that. I'm gonna I'm gonna play with the idea of running further with that, though, just size-wise. There's kind of a lot of dead space there, and I want to make him a bit more prominent. You can still do the tree thing, but instead of him being like that, we can get a bit more of this thing. So now we have a series of shapes, sizes. So we have hers being large, this is medium, and that is small. And so we have a triangle of sizes there. So here we had her as large, and then big blank space, and then kind of a small, and then kind of a small. And that just flows a little bit better dealing with the sizes of what's going on. The hair strand touching her lip is making kind of a distracting tangent. Yeah, that running right across the tip of the mouth. So it's like the lip is running into the hair. I'd probably move that. Even if you just went down a little bit further, it could work as well. You know, something more down there. Or it'd have to be like a lot higher. Something up there too. Yeah, I would make that a little bit bigger, and I'm thinking color-wise, it's like you're not going for full tones with that. Obviously not flesh tones, not full tones down here, but these tones still aren't the same. I'm going to suggest that they be the same. Or different. If they're different, then make them distinctly different. If they're similar, then just make them the same. No, give me that blue color. Yeah. Now, I think if they're going to be similar, just make them the same, so it simplifies it, and. Or at least, we'll put that on. I'm using a color layer to put them together. Let's say if it was like 60%. So they just keyed together a little bit more. Might be helpful. I think that's a little better. I'm trying to make better use of the space. We have just quite a bit of dead space on a lot of this. It's not doing much. But if we were to expand that out, we get a little more out of the image. And I was wondering if you continued the whole leaf shadow thing across her face. Well, it wouldn't make sense, I guess, unless it was going all the way to the edge. If you're going to have that much detail on the face, then we probably need to polish that up a little bit more. We also show quite a bit of texture down here, so let's show a little texture here on the fabric. And you don't have to do, all of it real detailed, but you might come in here with just some little lines. You probably can't see that too much. even some little WWs to create some sort of texture or pattern to it, and you know, along the edge too, just to break it up, make it not look like it's plastic, because it's so smooth right now. It looks more skin or plastic than it does fabric. And most of these, I'm saying simplify, you know, don't go into that. But we're so zoomed up on this, and you already have so much detail on the rest of it, that I feel like some subtle texturing on that would help it out. Okay, well, that's it for now. Hopefully that helps out a little bit. I like where it's going. I think it exemplifies the story quite well. Mahomet. I don't think I've seen this one yet. Okay. Okay, now this one, you're being a lot more literal than we had talked about. You're giving us a literal scene of her in a house with a background with the wolf. No, you're trying to make a wolf out of like glowing rocks and stuff. I'm not finding that's working that well. Yeah, I think you're trying to force too much out of that. Where if you're going to do it, it needs to be very simple. Very simple, like a shadow. All right, you want that sort of thing. This is more of a optical illusion sort of way to do it. You're trying to do something very realistic, in which case it starts falling apart more. I mean, it'd be better if it was just like a tree limb that came over. You know, and a set of tree limbs kind of came down and they formed, you know, the head of the wolf. And also, more of a profile of a wolf with its mouth open is really easy to identify. That silhouette is super easy to identify, which makes it really good as a silhouette and on book cover. A front view of a wolf that's made from all these kind of odd things, it just doesn't read real well, and you have to kind of work through it, and that's not really what you want. So, you know, using like tree limbs in that case would be more effective. Or if you're going to have the smoke, maybe the smoke, you know, that could work as well. If you want to have, I don't think we need any of this stuff in the background. We don't need like background mountains and stuff. This can all just be, that can all just be night sky. We don't need any of that. So you could have like a wolf face kind of coming, appearing in the smoke, right? Because smoke can curl around and make curious shapes and stuff. It would also lean into the idea that the wolf is in the house, right? So the wolf shape coming out of the smoke from the house that he is in would make sense. And then you have, you know, your dark woods maybe back there that kind of bleeds up into the night sky somehow. You know, that sort of thing. And then this needs to be darker here behind this text for it to show up more. I'm just trying to simplify. Get some more interesting shapes out of those. I don't know why there would be hot pink on these, but it kind of works though. In fact, you might use it more of an outline on her so that she can be a bit darker and still have that nice red to her. Yeah, I'd be taking it more that way. Let's not try to get so fancy with grass and rocks and moss and glowing rocks and all that stuff. Use something simpler like smoke or tree limbs. That would work better. And you can still go with this basic scene. Yeah, so there you go. Moment, hopefully you find that helpful. Say it. Eric, I know that you weren't commenting necessarily to me, you were chatting with somebody else, but you commented here saying, I'm realizing I need to make my own luck and maybe just bring my own creations to fruition. And you're right on. Something that I know I've said before, but maybe not everybody's caught episodes where I've said it, is, you know, if you want in the industry, make a place in the industry. It's not like the industry, you know, huddles together and says, well, let's make a place for the new guys and we'll just, you know, make you a spot right here and this is what you'll get to do and, you know, assigns you a number or something. That's not the way it works. You get in the industry by making your spot in it. You shove your way in. And that's how you get there. And so nobody gets there quite the same way, but it's possible to get in. If the job that you want, the career that you want, somebody isn't offering to you, then make it. I wanted to do art education. I wanted to do educational stuff. Nobody handed me anything to do that. I just started Swatches. So, no, it's not the illustration field, but it is the art field, and I just like, you know, I want to do this, so I'm doing it. I'm making my spot here. Yeah, you got to kind of take the same approach with a lot of stuff in life, frankly. Yeah. Miguel had asked, in your opinion, what is the best way someone can study from books or online classes? What process do you personally think works best? Thank you. I think that classes, if given a good teacher, are always going to do better because you can actually get feedback from a teacher where you can't from a book. But books tend to be a lot cheaper. Classes can get pretty pricey pretty quickly. So books are a great option of learning. But what you do want to do is make sure that you're actually trying to practice some of the things from the book. Don't just read it and be like, man, I'm better today than I was yesterday. No, you're not. Unless you actually put, you know, pencil to paper, then you're not actually putting in effect anything that you learned. So make sure that you're trying to do that. Another good way to improve is not by copying. I know a lot of people do that with books, certainly anatomy books, and where you learn by copying their images or drawings. And that's a really good way to waste your time. So if you are going to draw, you know, learn anatomy or something, at least flip it. If you're going to draw, you know, the foot, don't draw the foot the way they show it, draw the foot the opposite direction. So that you at least have to think about what's going on with it, the forms and the shapes, rather than just reproducing it. That's one of the things with books. Books are also a really good way to just keep good things coming in. Just reading. Just getting new books. Read through an art book. Read through a self-growth book, something like that. It's one of those things that you can constantly be feeding in that's pretty cheap. And it's a good way to get that input. Where classes, I think, are probably more special. And you don't want to just be taking classes all the time. There's, I forget what, there's a phenomenon or a term for it. I can't think of what it is. But essentially, your brain needs downtime to reorganize and to implement new information. That's essentially what you do when you go to sleep. Your brain's been given a lot of information, and while you're sleeping, the brain it's like a computer running a software update or a clean, right? It's reorganizing the files, making new connections, and adapting to what you gave it that day. In the same way, if you take a course, then you probably don't want to take another course immediately. You need your brain to get time to work through it, to kind of what does the Borg say? Assimilate. You need to assimilate that knowledge, or to actually make it part of you. And when you can do that, then you can go out and get some new stuff. So anyway, a couple of thoughts on books and classes. Next up. What we got here? 2 more on Mikawai's next. Oh, Adam, 4 a.m. Yes, please go to sleep. I appreciate you staying up. Frankly, I'm honored that you think it's worth staying up to 4 a.m. to watch. But yeah, man, get your sleep. You'll do better tomorrow. If you got some sleep, you can watch it. And of course, always just stay active on the Facebook group. So, I remember next week, earlier, it won't have to be 4 a.m. It'll be 10 p.m. I mean, get some sleep. Lisa says, very inspirational, Clint. Well, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. Great critique. Obviously, great work. Thank you for everything you've done. Well, thank you for joining the channel. And I, wouldn't have anything if you guys didn't join. So I appreciate all of my viewers, all of my guys out on the channel, the group, and certainly all the patrons that help make this thing possible, really. Okay, Mikawai is taking a different direction with this a little bit. I mentioned just getting the face and just letting it kind of blend into the woods. And I think that works. Like Red Riding Hood. You know it's about her and the wolf. And we don't even need the whole wolf body. We don't necessarily even need the wolf ears. Just the general shape of that kind of being hair-like in the eyes. It works. I think this is a highly successful image. The rendering of her is also excellent. Let's take a look at that. Do a little zoom up on there. It's a charming rendition of Red Riding Hood. Little bare feet with her checkered basket and some flowers. Good expression. It's very clean. It's very professional. I like the lightly textured sort of watercolor feel to it. It has a very classic look to it. I mean, this is digital, right? I think it's digital, but it has a very traditional look to it that works well with this particular project. So I think that's excellent. We had talked about doing this a little bit different. Instead of just the same tones up top, doing like a silhouette of the house, and you went that direction, cleaned up these trees in the background. Excellent use of that. There is very little that I would do to this, or I would even suggest, I think this works pretty darn well. If anything, I would get this area and I would just scoot, from her down to the eyes, and I would just scoot it up about that much. Just to get the eyes slightly away from the text down there a little bit more. And we've got some space to kill there, so I would just shift it up a little bit. Very, very minor thing there. And probably give some... This almost feels a little too blank. If you can do some of that grass texture, but not in black, if you used... just use some of your off brown. That's even too dark. We just want something... we just used a little of this, kind of blend it in so that it goes off. And it doesn't have to be over the whole thing, but some of it, just make it not look like a bald head. But this is texture, it has grass on it. So you're just kind of giving occasional spots of grass texture across there, so it's not completely blank. Yep. There you go. Anything else? No, I think the really sepia toned colors and contrasting against the red works really well. I'm worrying about, like, maybe instead of just the fuzzy everywhere, if we get a couple little leaf shapes in there, and they could even be like holly, where it's a little pokey, not the most inviting leaf shape. Holly is also a pretty hardy plant, if I recall, so it might still be alive in, winter, fall time. So yeah, that's a thought there as well. It's about noon here. Swatches, do you prefer to wake up really early at morning or stay up late night? I used to really be a night owl, but I've become a bit more morning. And I just find that I am more productive if I keep an earlier morning schedule rather than a late night. If I stay up late at night, I find that I usually I'm not nearly as productive as I like to think that I am. I might say it that way. I stay up, I'm working, but I'm usually like kind of watching a video or, whatever. And I'm not being as productive as if I get up in the morning and it's early. And if I get up then, I'm not prone to goof around as much. I'm usually like, okay, man, if I made the effort to get up this early, I'm going to get something done. So older I get, I'm getting a bit more that way. Also, I've learned that it's harder for me to bounce back from staying up really late than I used to be. Or maybe I'm just more aware of what I lose by doing that. So I don't tend to stay up all that late anymore. I used to all the time, though. Okay. Well, that's it, man. I don't have much more for you. I think this is a largely successful image. I love that you've done it. And yeah, I would make a couple of those little tweaks, and honestly, that'd be about it. And I'd say good stuff, man. Oh, I forgot to mention, on the new challenge, it is more realistic. We're going for a semi-realistic, fantasy style. You're thinking like Magic the Gathering sort of artwork. You know, it can be a little stylized, but it's generally on the realistic side. Yep. Let's go ahead and take another one of the questions. How do you come up with such dynamic and interesting poses for your characters? Oh, posing for characters. Well, one of the first things I want to do with pose is try to think about how the pose can convey the emotion of the character at a distance. Because a lot of times, especially like cards, if they're getting printed on a card, the face may be well too small to read a good emotion from the face. And so you want to try to convey the emotion from other parts of the body as well. You have body language, you know, whatever you're doing with your body. Then you have hands. And so those are basically your three means of conveying emotion: the face, the hands, and the whole body language. And you want to try to convey it on each one of those levels. So that can, just thinking about that, it's like, what is his feeling? Oh, he's forlorn. Okay, well, I can have a sad expression, but I can also think about what that would do with the body. And that would be a little more dynamic that way. Another thing to think about is, how can I create more depth out of it? Right? And if you're trying to create distance with it, that can also help you think about creating something a little more dynamic. If you're used to just having people on one plane that is just like straight, you know, across to the viewer angle, then you tend to have more boring poses, right? You're just kind of cardboard cutout, right? But if you're thinking about depth, or creating, you know, depth with the character, then you start thinking about how to turn the character sideways or something like that. Another thing that I enjoy doing is just getting my webcam. I'll just turn on my webcam and I'll play around in front of the camera and try out different things, and I'll, you know, take a bunch of pictures with my webcam just to kind of see what works good, what looks interesting. And also make sure that you're creating a library of dynamic images and dynamic poses. DeviantArt's got a lot of stuff of dynamic poses. There's photo packs that you can get. Create a library of poses based on comic books. You have some of the most dynamic comic books, poses in comic books that you can possibly find. So go up there. I mean, look at Spider-Man. The way that they can create the foreshortening and twisting and cool angles with, you know, characters like Spider-Man, really good. And look at, you know, Wolverine and the Hulk and all these guys that are known for being these incredible poses and everything. Those are good places to get inspiration as well. Another good way to come up with dynamic poses is just to sketch a little skeleton. You don't have to worry about doing musculature and all that stuff. Just get a little skeleton dude and draw him and try to get him in cool positions. And, you know, if you get used to moving him that way, then it just helps kind of get the brain going in the right direction as well. So, George, I hope you get some ideas out of that you might. I hope you get some ideas from that you might be able to use. There we go. I got through it. The last one up is William. Open. Hi, Clint. I ran out of time coloring, so it was a rush job. Not pleased with the coloring. Maybe we'll have a different take on it. Okay. So we got our lines. We got our color. Okay, I think this is another one where we're kind of pushing it a little too hard. We're trying to get a little too fancy with it, of all of the elements trying to come together to make the wolf mouth and head. I'm not sure what I'm looking at. Oh, that's a tree. Okay. Okay, that's a tree coming back there. It might still be possible, so let's make a new layer and set it to multiply. Okay, if you wanted to do this, and I do try to answer things different ways depending how you want to take it. One is, this is a complicated way to try to do it, but it is possible. So if you want to do it that way, maybe a way that you could do it more effectively is to at least get everything that's wolfy and make it either the same values or same color or something. So I'm thinking, what if that's set on multiply? Yep. If we get let's just drop a gray in first and just get something on it. I just need it to not be white for a second. There we go. Okay, now starting with that, if everything back here that was wolfy was coal, like this could just be night sky. Right? So everything that's wolf-faced could be night sky. And then some of the teeth here, they could be I'm almost thinking like if you had a series of leaves that were blowing, you could even create some tooth designs from blowing leaves. And then you could have a couple of scattered leaves out here as well, right? So it's actually becomes a consistent part of the design, but it just so happens that the leaves right here can be also seen as, as teeth. For this part up here, I'm gonna say night sky could probably work well because it's really black, really dark, and you can almost go black with it, right? And maybe you just have like one major star that's kind of glowing in the background, and that's kind of where you see the where the eye is, and then you've got the leaves kind of blowing across, and those can serve as some of the teeth. And then up this way you can just have some other tree or something, you kind of this sort of thing. You could just have part of her scene, right, as maybe a tree back there. And then this could all be pretty similar to you have, but we need to tone it back. We make it, this is ominous, all right? So we're going with at least dusk, if not nighttime. And maybe she's got, she's a little warmer in tone, right? She's a little nicer with her color scheme, but we want to make sure that it still has like the cool light on it, so we can, put some of that over there. And see about doing the same thing, but moonlight. And let's throw moonlight on all of it, if you're going to do it that way. Otherwise, we can have like, and this is, take an artistic license, positive, happy, shiny, daytime, mid-afternoon, dusk, night, as you go up the image, right? So up here, it's all nighttime and stars and darkness, and the trees in the background all, dark. But as it gets down, it becomes more daylight. And then as you get to the bottom, you have, more of what you have here, which is bright sunshine, and you've got your, your bright ground and all that. And I think that could work a bit more effectively, and also would capture the mood a little more. Because you don't want to just have like a dark night scene up here and then nothing. I would either say make it all a bit darker, like nighttime scene, or you could try the time transition thing. Or you have like, this is all nighttime, and then there's a division like along this line where this is daytime and this is nighttime. And you're just contrasting two different scenes, essentially, where the big things up here with her filling this whole background region. I guess it would be right across there, the tree line right there. Like this could be all daytime, nice, warm, bright colors along the lines of what you're doing, and then all of this is nighttime. Maybe you even put a little, you could have moonlight on her if you want. The cool light up there coming down on her cute little face, which I love the face. That's a nice face. Or you could also have, if you don't want to, too dark, you could have her almost like she's got a lantern with her or something, brightening her up a bit. Kind of catching some of that nice underlight. Beautiful round features. I love it. So you can do that sort of thing and have all your you don't want to get too dark with it. You're just sticking with the right value rather than trying to get I'm saying if you can use about any color that you want as long as it's the right value. So, you can throw in a lot of these nice tones into there. But you need to carry that on throughout the rest of the part with her in it, right? And you can get a good pop of red down there from the light, wherever that is. I'm not, figuring all that out. But same sort of thing up here, right? You can have some cool moonlight coming across her as well. On top of the hood. Yep. There we go. That's how I'd approach it. You can go that way all night, and then like in daytime, kind of contrasting against those. Simplify it. Take out that tree, take out the bird. Try to just use, you might even put like the moon as the eye, or just a large star kind of shining would be able to help make that. If you wanted a cloud, you could use some nighttime clouds that are maybe kind of circling around. You might be able to use those in the design a little bit as well. So, I can tell your skills of drawing from this, and obviously how to draw, and you can draw well. Look at that. That's lovely. I just feel like the whole design thing, using more of a graphical approach, is probably something that you don't work with that much. So on that's just, I feel like you're kind of hitting a hiccup on that. But keep pushing through it and play with it. Try some variations with that. And it's going to be really good to add a bit of that into your, repertoire to use in future projects as well. That is one thing that I feel like I got out of the years of, sorry, I bumped that, years of doing graphic design. You start thinking very compositionally in graphic design, and how to use images and words in combinations. And a lot of those things translate over thinking in a very design sort of way. So if you're in the design field and you're thinking about getting in the art field, some of that information and some of the things that you've learned from that translate well. And you're not necessarily starting from scratch. And in fact, in some ways, you will probably be better than straight artists that just learn by the drawing side. Now, I think we had another question that was sent in. And we're right about 2 hours, so I think we'll take this question and then wrap it up. Mama has said, what is the best way to start our career? How we understand we are good enough to find a job. You can see the things I draw. It has issues for sure, but are they good enough so I can start earning some small income? Any suggestions or tips to earning some money? Well, we kind of talked about that earlier in the stream with that other question. So I don't necessarily need to rehash all of that. I was like, who did what? Which one? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to just say right now, the first thing that you need to do is just get your artwork up to par. And not just occasionally, but you need to be able to consistently put out a certain level of work, whatever work that is. And also, have your inspiration images and be like, I've got to be able to reach this level. And I've got to do, 6 or 10 images that match this quality. And when you do, maybe that's your cutoff of when you decide you can go do it. But there isn't just this day that, today you are not good enough, and then you wake up the next day, you're good enough. Who says you're good enough? The way that you get good enough is somebody hires you. All right? There isn't some official good enough label or certificate. It's like, how valuable is something? Things are as valuable as somebody is willing to pay for it. That's how you know how valuable it is. In the same way, is your art valuable to the industry? Well, if somebody's willing to pay for it, it is. If not, then, it's valuable to you, I suppose. But, focus on yourself first. You can only focus on so many things. So focus on your art. Make sure you have fundamentals down. I have a whole series on the fundamentals. Make sure that you know all of those. You need to know your anatomy, or at least basically. You need to know your perspective. You need to know color, basics of colors and values and composition, all that stuff. And you need to have a gallery of, say, at least 8 to 10 images that are finished, that are, print ready, that a client would look at and say, yep, they know what they're doing. That's nice and clean. Make sure that you know how to finish an image. I see quite a few people that put out concepts and they fill the gallery with a lot of concepts. It's not even good concept art. It's just an illustration that isn't finished. And that's not comforting to an art director. So make sure that you are showing people that you know how to finish an image. If you have, 15 pieces that's posted and none of them are actually have any polish to them, art director is going to look at that and be like, that guy doesn't know how to finish a gig. He doesn't know how to wrap it up. He doesn't know how to put the polish on it and really make it shine so that it's ready to be put in front of my customers. So they're not going to hire you. Show them that you know how to put that extra polish on there and give it that extra pass. And I'm not saying that things have to be really detailed, but whatever your style is, you need to show that you can do it cleanly or effectively or whatever it is that applies to that particular approach. Question is, how long does an illustration take? That really depends on the illustration. I've done an illustration in 2 days. I've done an illustration in a month. So it depends. I would say most of my magic stuff runs about 4 days of time. Yeah. I would say that, yeah, in a ballpark. I usually do a 1 day for the sketch and submit that. And then 3 days for painting. But I'm usually juggling other things too. Like I'm juggling Swatches stuff and critiques and other projects. So my time isn't usually a full day on any one thing. But yeah, I try to keep it within a work week for one image. It's difficult to do on some of them though. People take a lot longer, generally speaking. Faces take a long time. So, yeah. Choosing what subjects you do and how you light them drastically affects how long things take to paint. That's why I start backlighting a lot of my stuff or side lighting it with fill lights rather than direct lights, because direct lights, they will literally double the amount of time it takes to paint something. So I learned that finally, and I start kind of backing off of that unless it's specifically needed for the image. There you go. But you know, I don't want to like back away from the question, but I honestly have it take a lot of different amount of times. And then it's things like the company might ask for revisions, so there's easily an extra 1, 2 to 3 days depending on what they want done. So yeah, there you go. Okay, well, it's 9 o'clock for me. We clocked in just over 2 hours, but yeah, we're going to wrap it up from there. In case just another quick overview. I will make this available for you guys if you want to join the next challenge, which is the duo, which is the human character in the foreground with the massive secondary element in the background. And it can be along these lines. And you can choose which one you want to do. And you got next Friday to do it. I should be able to do it next Friday. Remember, 5 hours earlier next Friday. Wherever you are is 5 hours earlier. So changing it up a little bit. Give some other people to be able to join without having to stay up till 4 a.m. Okay, that's where I'm going to end it. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Again, if you want to join the challenge, get your stuff reviewed, patreon.com/swatches. Join the Swatches Facebook group. Get feedback and support out there at swatches.group, and check out my videos. All this stuff that I'm talking about: composition, color palette, choosing them, the free color palette thing that you can use to pick your color palette. That's available for free. My ebooks on all that stuff. I mean, that's where I really go in depth on all of these things. I just give surface feedback on this. I don't have the time to go in depth. So make sure you're checking out the stores for all that. And thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time. Until then, keep drawing.